Hi guys, I wanted to try something new for the video this week, so I'm going to be analyzing someone else's replay. This one is of Nika244, the Gray Dazzle. In this video, he's around 3000 MMR and asked about how he can improve his play. And let's see, at the beginning of the game, he's in a lineup with a Bristleback, a Death Prophet, and a Bloodseeker. All three of these heroes do a lot of physical damage, so Weave is very darn useful here, as well as any sort of minus armor, which is Goo and a Medallion. They have a lot of single target, I would say, with like Axe and Anti-Mage and Storm Spirit, so Grave is also pretty useful here. So overall, the hero fits into the lineup pretty well. And always before a game starts, I'm thinking about, okay, who has the better gank, who has the better team fight, who has the better push, who has the better late game. I think late game is actually one of the more important things to look at, so I'll concentrate on that first. They have Anti-Mage and Storm Spirit, as well as a split pushing, potentially Nature's Prophet. That's a lot of split push to deal with and a lot of late game to deal with, and I think that their late game and split push is a lot better than yours. So that means that you want to concentrate on the early mid and try not to let it get late. Secondly, how are their lanes? How are their supports? What are their supports going to be doing? They have a solo Winter Wyvern support who's most likely going to be supporting AM bottom, a Storm Spirit mid, and an Axe or NP off lane with one of those heroes almost certainly in the jungle. So that means you're versus one support on bottom and most likely a solo offlaner, which makes things much easier in a 3-on-1 situation. So that's pretty much it for prior to the game starting. And then how do you want to win the early game? Do you want to completely own the offlaner because it's probably going to be a weak offlaner? One that you can zone out is Axe, I think, pretty easily, and Nature's Prophet, I think, is pretty easy to kill if you have a Spirit Breaker on your team. So either of those lanes can be killed, or you can limit the Anti-Mage's farm, which you can do with a pressure off lane, which would be Dazzle and Bristleback in this particular case. So a lot of options are open to you in this early game, and I think they ended up deciding to do a 3-1-1 and shut down the off lane as opposed to shut down the Anti-Mage. But in 6.85, I probably would recommend shutting down the Anti-Mage. So first things first, Mr. Nika is a little bit slow about buying his items. This Bristleback already bought his items, and he's already almost like halfway to the rune, probably a little bit more, and you aren't outside your base yet. So something I tell everyone: buy your items quicker, decide on that pool quickly, buy chicken and whatnot, and just get outside of base so you can start making things happen around the map, get vision and whatnot. So the first decision that Mr. Nigga decides to do is to place an observer ward, and he actually wants to place one in the mid lane, but the observer ward in the mid lane is not terribly useful in a lot of situations. It's generally good, I think, if you have like a Queen of Pain in the mid lane, because you really want an aggressive hero that will be like right clicking uphill as well as being able to target heroes uphill. With Death Prophet, it's not that big a deal because Crypt Swarm, you don't need to target a unit. You can just target an area and it'll hit people uphill, no problem. And Death Prophet usually doesn't right click people from downhill to uphill. On top of that, they only have one support, so that means that that guy is most likely going to be supporting the Anti-Mage bottom as opposed to camping the Storm Spirit mid. So I don't really like this ward. I'll probably talk about it a little bit more as to why I would rather have one in this position right here, where you can actually see the offlaner. It's really important to see the offlaner, especially when he has the option of jungling. A lot of time you'll be trying to zone him out and you're not exactly sure where he is. He could be leeching, he could be all the way on the opposite side of the map in the jungle, and a lot of that would be solved with an observer ward. And then you know whether or not you're free to stack, whether you can like kill him because he's going for the rune, whether you need to help out your carry and start zoning the guy out so he doesn't get free experience. Like, all these things are possible just by having vision. So information is power, and having the right information is difficult when the observer wards aren't in the right place. So you guys are up in this area, and I will switch it to dire vision. You guys charge this guy, and then this guy moves up the hill, and immediately, as soon as he moves up the hill, your vision should check down here and see who is who's behind him. That is really important. Like, a lot of times people are like, oh, I should, always have it centered around my hero so I can see what's going on, but you want to see who's over here. And if there's a Winter Wyvern there with like a Cold Embrace or Arctic Burn, then you might have to play a little bit differently. But because there's no one behind him, I'd be like, okay, screw this guy, I'm just going to kill him. This guy doesn't even have a salve. I'm just going to play super aggressively on him. So At this point, if I were Dazzle, I would skill up a Poison Touch or a heal immediately and get some free damage on Storm Spirit, because you're not really going to pay for it. Their First Blood is terrible. There's almost no reason you should need level 1 Grave at level 1. So, could have gotten more damage. It also starts your natural regen, which is pretty much free mana, because right now you can't regen mana because you're already at full. And this guy, I don't know what he's really doing, dropping 2 remnants, but he gets charged, and then you come back, which is good. You dodge a remnant, which is also good, and then you skill up heal, so you can get a little bit more damage on him, so you can kill him. So I really like that skill up of Grave, but you could have done a little bit earlier just to get him down 100 more HP, and it becomes a pretty easy lane, I think, in the mid when the guy's died once and he's used a lot of his regen, and he has to wait to buy for money to buy a TP scroll, and this guy doesn't have any regen at all anymore. So that was decent, and then you missed a stack at the 1 minute mark, which is not a huge deal, but anyways, you guys go for a kill, and I'm gonna slow motion this. So you start right clicking him, and then you right click him again without moving at all. And at this point, it's pretty obvious that you're about to try and kill him. This guy uses thirst. He's not quite at full HP, and this guy's charging him. So your positioning should be getting closer and closer to him in between each attack, or you can simply just walk right next to him to get some more damage from the Shadow Wave. This guy actually went Hunger at level 2. Not exactly sure why, but you can get free damage pretty much from the Shadow Wave. Or even if you don't want to move in melee range, you should be right-clicking and moving in between every attack so that you can get more right clicks in on them. And right now it's pretty clear that you just like right click him without any sort of micro at all, and sometimes heroes are like 1 or 2 hits away from dying, and just not moving and attacking in between each and every hit can lead to some getaways like that. So micro your hero a little bit more. Like you could have just right clicked him and just let your hands off the keyboard, and that would have been the same effect. Control your hero a little bit better. Let's see, next you actually eat a tree to top yourself off, but I would have eaten this tree over here so that you can pull the creeps. And even if there's 1 tree eaten there, generally I like to eat a little bit more just so the creeps don't get fogged when they try and pull back. So let's see, next thing is around 150. You buy boots, you have 450 full, 450 gold, sure, why not? And then you go for a stack on this, and then when you're stacking, you can just run all the way to the right, and then I would just continue down. Like right at this point, I would just be like, okay, it's 2 minutes. I might as well check the rune. If it's bounty, free money for me, and I deny storm it. If it's something else, then maybe I can like get an invis and kill a jungle nature's prophet. Maybe I can get a haste and just pressure mid. There's a lot of things you can do with the rune, but instead you decide to turn back and go up. And there's actually a regeneration rune over there. If a storm like somehow gets a 2-minute bottle after the start he had and get the regeneration rune, that's like your death prophet pretty close to lost the lane from there, even though you've already killed him once. So that is a thing that can be of really big importance, and you don't really do anything from like 2 to 210 anyways, so you're not really missing out on that much. That rune could potentially be a pretty big game changer. So make sure you're checking runes when you're like already there. And if Axe is there, maybe you guys can get a free kill with a charge. There's a lot of things that are possible there, but you're not really creating the opportunity because you guys don't have vision of the rune at all until this point where this guy charges, but that's 30 seconds too late. So let's see, skill build. You're not level 2 yet. When you do hit level 2, you actually opt to take, let's see, Grave. And level 1 Grave I think is pretty good. It depends on the situation. If you guys are like tower diving a lot, Grave is pretty useful because that's like 5 more seconds of taking the tower, but it's not that useful versus an Axe. And sometimes you want a poison touch, especially if your Spirit Breaker is like off doing something else on opposite side of the map, charging mid, charging bottom. So having level 1 poison touch can help you zone out the offlaner a lot. And if he's poor, you can just continue to make him poor with that skill build. Generally, I think a 1-1-1 skill build is very, very good. This game, I think a 1-0-2 might have been slightly better than 1-1-1, but that's a very rare situation. So the next point I wanted to jump to is about, oh, actually, there's something I want to talk about here too. So here there's 3 camps. The Wildkin, the Furbolg, and the Centaur. So it's a triple stack. But you guys don't actually have many heroes, at least not on the top side of the map, that can take stacks. Your Bloodseeker might jungle, but he's not going to be able to take like a 3 stack this early in the game. Most Bloodseekers go like a 1-1-3, I would say. And if they have a lot of AoE, like if Death Prophet were top or Bristle were top, I would say, okay, it's a good idea to stack this one 3 times. But in this particular situation, it's probably better to stack this one twice, this one twice, and then this one twice, just so it's easier for your Bloodseeker to jungle. Your Bloodseeker can then rotate to the jungle, and then your Dazzle support can just farm the lane, and you can be super efficient that way. Because Bloodseeker doesn't want to take this camp. He's like, I can't take it. It's just going to take me forever. I have to kite it, and Axe can also potentially take it. So it's generally just not a good idea to stack it this big if you have a really weak carry in the early game at taking out stacks. So don't mindlessly stack. Think about who can take it and when they can take it, and whether or not you'd be better off doing something else, like killing someone, ganking mid, checking rune, or stacking another camp. Let's see. Next one is 6:30-ish. There's a jump in the mid lane. Okay, so you guys try and kill a storm. This guy gets a 6-minute rune. Again, you guys should have better control of the runes, considering you guys are 5-0 and Storm had a very terrible time. And this guy regens up and threatens a kill after he regens up on the mana. So you immediately grave, which is pretty good reaction time, but at the same time, most storms, they generally go a 3-0, like a 2-0-3 build at level 6, I would say, with max overload or max remnant first, and they very rarely have pool. So this means that you can actually generally wait until someone else comes in, like Nature Prophet might TP in, and then you can wait until like you're at 100 HP. Especially if you have magic sticks, you don't have to grave yourself immediately. And he's just trying to bait out cooldowns while he has this regeneration rune going. So good reaction time, but bad overall idea. And then, let's see, this ward in mid does not have that much longer left and falls at 640. So you place it at -20, and you actually have almost no vision on the map. Not at least in areas that matter. You have a ward down here, but it can't see any of the heroes jungling right now. And this Nature's Prophet, I think, has been like cliff jungling for most of the game, and you guys have no eyes on him. And more importantly, you don't have eyes on the mid lane. So Death Prophet might feel a little bit scared. Like Storm +1 can kill you, especially with the Nature's Prophet, and you can't even go for kills on a Storm because you don't know where he is. And at this point, like, people start moving around in the lanes, and you just don't know where anyone is. So one thing I like to talk about a lot is continuity and wards. If you had place the wards, let's say when you were already there in the lane, then you would have vision over there, and if they place a ward there, you can also deward it. A lot of people have to like guess where to deward because they don't actually have good vision, and a lot of that is having continuity wards. Like, where might Radiant place a reserve ward? Might be right here, could be right here, could be right here, could be right here, could be over here, could be over here. Like, there's so many places they could place a reserve ward. Like, you have to generally like see them place it in order to be able to deward it. So I think that was pretty important. Another one was at, I missed one at like around 5:10. You guys go for a kill, attempted kill on the Axe, I think pretty soon. And Axe, I don't know why he's like deciding to do this, but anyways, this guy dies, and then you're in a position where you're at 100 HP and 436 mana. You heal 100 each Shadow Wave for around 100 mana, so it will take you about 4 heals to get pretty close to max HP. 4 heals is 360 mana. Clarity is 170, so net around -200 mana. So you can either heal yourself up just by Shadow Waving a few times and using Clarity, and you'd be at like 230 mana, which is enough to cast both your spells, which I think is pretty good. Or you can just salve up and still have 400 mana, and without really any loss of efficiency. But instead, you decide to go all the way home to heal, which wastes a very long time. It wastes like almost a minute. It was 5:20, now it's like 6:05, let's say, and then if you, by the time you TP to the lane, it'll be like 6:10. So that's almost a minute gone. when you could have just salved up and just went along and done stuff for a minute. So that's a very inefficient thing that allowed Storm to get this rune. And you know, you could have stacked one more time for Bristle or Death Prophet or Bloodseeker. You could have stayed in a lane and salved up and maybe gotten a lot of damage on this tower. There's a lot of things that could have happened in that 1 minute. So next one is around 16 minutes. Again, another story in efficiency. So you guys take Roche with Exorcism. Cool. Bloodseeker gets a ward, and then immediately everyone just splits up. That's kind of how pubs work. Sometimes not everyone's on the same page, which is understandable. But you want to push out mid lane, and your teammates want to push out bottom. So at this point, I would have probably recommended you stay with your team and push out bottom, just because right now they're 2, which is really, really scary, because if they come as 5, they can just kill both of you guys and you lose the Aegis, and they actually get some kills. But anyways, you decide to push out the mid lane, and you heal once to push out the lane, which is good. And then at this point, it's pretty clear that they're pushing bottom. They're like really close. There's like no more enemy creep waves. You have an observer ward set up. They have the Aegis. They don't have Exorcism, but it looks like they're gearing up to push a tower. So you should probably join them at this point, and that means you can just let this siege creep live, or you can stand right next to it and heal. You can get Spirit Breaker, stand right next to it just to push out this wave, and it looks like you're just trying to run around, decide what to do, and you wander around for like a good 20 seconds. And at this point, if I'm Radiant, I'm like, okay, let's kill these guys on bottom. There's only 2 people. You see Spirit Breaker charge somewhere else. You see Dazzle, who could TP to T1 tower, but that's still like very, very far away. And they likely use Ghost to take down Roshan. Even if they do, like, Death Prophet doesn't have the Aegis, so it's not that big of a deal. And I would just like, okay, just jump on these guys, let's kill them. And that'd be a very good opportunity. And you're still running around trying to figure out where you should be. So drop a heal at this point, head to your team. You should have probably headed over there 30 seconds ago. And why does this matter? There's a big fight that's erupting on bottom. Oh, it would have been nice to have a heal right there. And Spirit Breaker charges in, and your position is still like 2 screens away. You can't do anything. You could have, you know, earned this Death Prophet so he could have been topped off, earned this Bloodseeker so he doesn't have the Aegis, or so he doesn't have to use his Aegis. You could have dropped a heal on this Winter Wyvern so he would have just popped right there instead of just surviving with barely any HP and forcing some of your teammates to chase. You could have healed to kill this Storm Spirit. You could have graved the Spirit Breaker so he didn't die. You could have graved this Death Prophet so he didn't die from Mana Void. And all these spells come in like, you know, 10-15 seconds late because of you not pushing out the lane at 15:30 and hooking it with your team. So a lot of the mistakes and bad fights are generally caused by bad decisions like 30 or 40 seconds ago, at least not the obvious mistakes. So push out lanes a little bit quicker. No need to be super stingy with your mana, and at this point you just come into the fight and die because your whole team's already dead and a support is kind of useless by themselves. And actually this guy ends up getting an ultra kill into a rampage, but still this was, I think, a 4-for-4 including the Aegis, when it probably should have been a 4-for-1, 3-for-1, maybe even a 4-for-0 had you been there at the right time. And then there's only one more instance in the game that I wanted to point out, and that was around 21:30. So this one, you guys are about to take a fight in the mid lane. It's a 3v5, not a great fight to take in the first place, but let's kind of ignore that. Bristleback's pretty low mana. He just took out a stack, and he wants to initiate on this axe in the mid lane. So this guy calls. I don't know why he's in like such a weird position. He's in a slightly different position if I rewind. So let's see. Okay, so you guys are about to take a fight. This guy wants to push out the creep wave, and he calls him, and then you heal him, which is good, and this guy gets ruptured, so you guys are trying to kill the axe, obviously. And then you right-click him once, which is fine. You drop a pretty good weave that hits 1, 2, 3, 4 heroes. Pretty good weave. And then you start deciding to click on the Storm Spirit and right-click him. You right-click him once, and then you back off, and you're like, oh crap, I'm in a terrible position, and all because you decided to right click the Storm Spirit. If that wasn't obvious, I'll go through it one more time. Bristle initiates on Axe, he gets ruptured, you right click him once, you heal, which is fine. He has like pretty long reach with his spells because his chain it bounces, so you get one right click on him, he zips over, and then right now you're in an awful position. You're like the one that's easiest to kill. They want to kill you so you can't grave anyone else, and you're actually kind of isolated. You and Bloodseeker are isolated from your team, and you're actually now closest to the enemy team because you decided to attack this guy one time. And he has, I think, like yeah, he has a fair amount of armor, so you didn't really get any damage on him anyways. Pop Crimson Guard, this guy gets graved, good grave, and then now you're completely isolated from your team, and you just end up getting blinked on and die to the anti-mage. So, in effect, you got one right click off and ended up dying for it. And how much did your right click damage actually do? Sometimes it is worth it. So with 14 armor, 46% magic resistance, so let's just say you have 90 attack damage, maybe a couple more. Yeah, so let's just say you did like 40 damage for a death, and you can just like heal him, you can earn him, like any of these things will do more damage than one right click. And I was actually coaching a support, and he would just like right click towers, right click people like all the time and give away his positioning. Sometimes it is worth right clicking people, but you have to think about it. Is it worth giving away my positioning for X amount of right clicks? In this position, it was one right click. Definitely not worth it. Sometimes with like 5 or 6, or like scoring a kill on an important hero that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise, then yeah, I can kind of justify that. But this one was completely unjustifiable, and you'll find yourself in a lot of positions like, how did I get there? It's because you decided to right click someone. You don't do that much damage. That's what your cores are for. You're there for your defensive abilities, and you being able to cast like, 5 more shadow waves is going to do so much more damage than right click. So dead supports do no damage, and it's important to stay alive in fights. Don't give away your positioning. Don't right click people to put yourself in a bad position. Like even when I'm sieging towers, generally I'll like stand like right here if I'm radiant, or like way in the back so that people can't see me. You always want the element of surprise, like a surprise grave, a great weave on like 8 people. That's kind of what you want as a support. And if they know where you are, they're just gonna generally just burst you down on the spot. So there you guys have it. Thank you guys so much for watching. That was Mr. Nika on the Dazzle. Just trying something new and analyzing someone else's play instead of my own. So thank you guys. Please hit that subscribe button. Merlini Dota on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Thank you guys. See you next time.